Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's Chris, the DatingDoc here with my inaugural first ever podcast. Actually, right now, we're even trying to come up with names, with the DatingDoc gimmick. I've thought about such things as the waiting room, right? Before you go on a date, you're in the waiting room, right? Going to see the date doc. Other things that we've thought about was just simply calling it the DatingDoc podcast. Not getting too snazzy with that, just keeping it simple. So we are up for suggestions or names, ideas that you have. But what I want to do is the intent with this podcast is to bring up different types of subjects and eventually do this in a live forum. For those that don't know, when I was deployed in Kuwait, I would wake up 6 a.m. in the morning on Sundays. So it would be 10 p.m. Central Time. With the aim of my market in Texas being able to get on live on Facebook. I think with the podcast, we'll be able to get folks on there and you can watch the replay, you can comment, and we want to build a community. That's really the biggest thing, is that we want to be able to have like a hub of ideas, an ecosystem, as they call it in the entrepreneur world. I'm going to start off maybe with about 10 minutes of a podcast, and then from there we can grow it depending on how many comments we get. So the biggest aim of this is that we do treat it like a virtual happy hour. You're able to just get on here, and any subject I bring up, I would love to hear your stories. I would love to hear your opinions, and it's a great way for me to meet clients. And what I mean by clients, folks that are interested in my services, as well as just the fans, those that maybe they're not ready to take that first step, but they want to know what the DatingDoc is all about. They want to talk dating, and dating is a fun topic at hand. So what is going on, people? We are back, and we're going to dive into this subject. We're just like you got the prairie hands and you're diving into the pool like the cartoons do. We're going to dive into this subject, which is masturbation and dating. Now, masturbation, it is something that is often not spoken about as much, right? You hear about sex and dating, right? That's such a holistic topic. It's like a huge net. And for a lot of folks, they think, well, that's juicy enough. That's taboo enough of a subject. But no, let's get specific about how masturbation affects dating. So I'm gonna start off with a quick story on my experience with sex ed, or lack thereof. So let's take it back 22 years ago, to 96, when my dad was stationed in Hawaii. And at that time, we had a waiver that we had to send back to our house. And it was a waiver to say, are you going to take sex ed or not? And the parents had to endorse it or sign it. You know what I mean? And I'm the only kid, believe it or not, that got circled, no, I will not take sex ed. So for an hour, I'm back at school while everyone else is taking sex ed. They're in their classroom doing it. Taking the class, not doing it. That'd be a whole different type of class. And here I am in a cubicle, just hanging out, staring at the walls, bored as can be. And I remember the most I got out of sex ed was when I came back, and I hear like the last 5 minutes of the class. Maybe I wasn't even allowed to, but I made it back. And the only tidbit I got was back in the days how they used to use animal skin as condoms, and how they would back in the days they would use a hot rod to try to get rid of STDs. And wow, that was my 5 minutes of sex ed. I said, damn, that's pretty gruesome. But needless to say, I think there was a curiosity there since I didn't get to class. And this is coming from a guy who was a late bloomer. I'm telling you guys, I was pretty late bloomer when it comes to sex and masturbation. So I start off with that story because it is something that before that I had no idea what masturbation was. Never did it. I still found women attractive. Was still wanting to pursue them. And then as I'm going through the years and I discover myself, discover my body, start masturbating, then I became more aware of how this affected me. And I want to be able to set the stage there so I can also explain a little bit about masturbation and a little bit of a scientific term. That way, not so you feel guilty about doing it, but I can at least explain what's going on a little bit before, after masturbation, during, and right after. So, with masturbation, you got to understand that this is an activity that, for some folks, they think that it is an anxiety killer. It calms you down. For others, it actually creates more anxiety afterwards. So, first question I have for y'all is, looking back on it, does it create more anxiety for you, or is it something that helps you fall asleep? I'd actually like to learn about, what you guys are thinking, because this is interesting. We hear both. We hear that, well, I can't sleep, or I'm stressed, I'm going to use it to chill out. And for others, they're going to say, I thought that. Then looking back on it, it actually creates a lot more anxiety for me. Maybe regret, things, withdrawal symptoms. So first off, with the masturbation part, understand that your brain has a lot of plasticity. And what I mean by that, not plastic like pollution or anything of that sort. It's very malleable. It can be changed and it could evolve on its own. And what you're doing when you're masturbating is you're activating your synapses and receptors, right? And think of your brain as having a lot of wires, which it actually does. And the synapses and receptors are like two wires that keep curling and hugging up on each other, and they get tighter and tighter when you activate the same synapses and receptors. So the way it works is you have drug addicts, you have those that are addicted to alcohol, gambling, and so on and so on. And what they're really doing is they're activating their prefrontal cortex, is where, literally right in front of your head, up there where your brain's at, you're activating the dopamine. You're getting the dopamine hit. And again, the dopamine is the same hit you get from doing crack and also from masturbating too much. And I wanted to explain that just because, so you're just made aware. I don't want you to think, next time you're watching porn or masturbating, you're thinking, well, here I am activating the prefrontal cortex as per the DatingDoc in Google. No, I just want you to know that that's actually what's happening. That's why you do it. That's why we want to do it. And for those that don't understand balance, this is when it can become an addiction. And you may be listening right now, and you may become close to an addict, or you've dated an addict, or have had a friend who didn't answer your calls, or it was hard to reach them because of this. And I've worked with clients who their former spouse, they were addicted to porn, addicted to masturbation. And there was a lot of confusion. They're always wondering, okay, what did I do or what did I not do? What the heck's going on here? And a lot of that is because, many of these couples, you have the oxytocin. The oxytocin is a brain chemical. It's like, and again, someone's going to quote me out there and say you're wrong, but it is a warm, cuddly feeling brain chemical. And versus dopamine, which is more the exciting, like, man, I need it now type of hit, almost that the adrenaline junkie, even though adrenaline is another brain chemical. It's the excitement part of it. And for a lot of those married couples or formerly married couples or long-term relationships, they've said, why is it that my husband or wife would become a porn or masturbation addict? And it's because, again, with work, with kids, with a relationship that was maybe very warm and loving, but no longer had the dopamine hit, which you normally get from, the initial infatuation, stuff like that, they turned to porn. That was their way to keep it wild instead of communicating with their partner. And it became dangerous. It obviously became the end of the relationship. I'm not sure if you can hear that. There's rain in the background here in San Antonio, so I apologize, but we're going to keep rolling. We're going to keep rolling. Just like when they say in the military, if it ain't raining, we ain't training, right? So something like that. I probably botched that right now. I do want to know if you've had any issues, if you ever feel like, hey, you know what? Yeah, I admit publicly or privately. If you do tell me in private, I am discreet about all this. I respect that because I would expect the same if I was getting advice from someone. So, yeah, I do want to know if you've ever felt that it was too dangerous, or if it is something that instead of calming you down before a date or because you're getting excited over someone, it's actually done a lot more harm. So feel free to share your story. I'm going to go ahead and end the podcast now. We're going to try to keep it at 10 minutes. This is more of a pilot episode of a podcast for the Dating Doc. So feel free to leave any comments and any subject ideas. That would be fun. Also, quick little update. So Batman and Catwoman are getting married. And that's interesting. We've had a couple other, I think Superman and Lois Lane got married back in the day. Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, I should say, and Gwen Stacy. So for all my comic book fans, there's another marriage. I didn't think Batman was a settle down type. I could see Catwoman. Catwoman seemed like one of those rebels that just needed to calm down. But Batman's such a brooding character. Bruce Wayne and. Just the fact that he's got some issues. He both of his parents died. He just can't kill his nemesis. But yeah. Anyways, all these non-comic book geeks are like, what the hell is he talking about? Bottom line, Bruce Wayne and Catwoman are looking at getting married. But based on comic book history, I'm not sure if they'll stick around. Anyway, so next subject that we're looking at talking about is online dating services, digital dating apps, swiping apps, and we're going to talk specifically about Match Group. Match Group is a company that owns a lot of these different websites such as Match, POF, and a huge stake in Tinder. And we're going to talk about the drama they're having with Bumble. So stay tuned. Hope you enjoyed. Again, please leave me the feedback. You're just a witness to the first ever Dating Doc podcast. Take care.